Hi, in this video we're going to look at how we combine multiple files into one file using the Power Query interface and specifically the get data from folder function. Stick around to the end because I'm going to show you a bonus tip on how you avoid pulling in extra data that will clutter your results if you've got additional subfolders contained within the folder you're pointing to. Let's jump right on in. So we're looking to combine the contents of everything within this folder called clean, and it's got 3 different divisions of a business's sales data within it. So our job is to consolidate all 3 of these files so that we've got one master sales data set that contains all of the divisions details. Here's the dummy contents of the 3 workbooks. So we've got a worksheet called sale in each of them, and we've got a sample data set of products and sales by month. So let's have a look at how we can combine this data. We're going to go up to the data ribbon. We're going to click on the get data drop down. We're going to go to from file and we're going to click from a folder. This is going to allow us to point to a folder to combine all the files from that folder. So we can click on the clean folder that we were just looking at here. And then we can click open. Now Power Query is going to go off and fetch the contents of that folder, so we can see the 3 workbooks that are contained in that folder. And now we've got the choice to either combine them and just load, or combine and transform, or just load or just transform. So we're going to combine all 3 of these workbooks and we're going to apply some transformation steps. So we're going to go combine and transform. Up pops a little helper query, which is asking for a suggestion of which of those worksheets contains the right structure to apply to all of the worksheets. So you can see here we've selected the first file. You can choose any, but first file is usually good enough. And then it's found within that file one sheet called sale. So if I click on that sheet, you can see now we've got a preview of the data contained on it, which matches that first initial workbook I flashed up of the contents. So the structure and the sheet name, if you remember, was sale in all 3. So we can click OK. So Power Query's gone off and added these 4 additional queries or parameters onto the left-hand side here, contained within this group. And we have an output of a query here called clean. So you can see here we've got the original file from here to here with the products and the sales by month. We've got this additional column here, which is source.name. And notice this is showing us the name of each workbook that's been combined to get this data. So if we flick back to the folder, you see these are the 3 workbook names. So we can easily see which rows have come from which workbook, thanks to that additional column. Let's just have a look at what's gone on here. So the source step is having a look at the contents of this folder. We're unhiding any hidden files. It's invoking the custom function, which is one of these helper transformations that we'll have a look at in a bit more detail in a second. It's renaming the file name column to be source.name. It's removed any other columns. So on this step, you can see there's extensions, there's date access, date modified. None of that stuff is of any use here. It's simply pulling the source name of the file and then drilling into the content of each file. So it's removed all those. And then notice the little arrows here above the nested tables against each of these. If we peek into those, we can see the actual contents that it's pulled from each of those workbooks. And this next step is simply expanding out those nested tables. And that gives us this output here, and then it's added a change type step. So that's the crux of how that's working, but let's have a look at these transformation helper queries and parameters that have been added here. So parameter 1 sample file, we don't need to do much with this. This basically holds the binary data of that initial file that we pointed it to. If you recall, we used first file as our sample file, and that's what this next step is holding. So this is just saying sales division A was the first file it found, and therefore that is our sample file. Notice the navigation just takes the source, zero-based index in the content of it. And then this transform file parameter actually goes to each file and takes the steps from the transform sample file to give the output. At this point, we could click on our output query, and if we're happy there's no other manipulation or transformation needed to that, we could simply go close and load to, and then choose a destination of either table, pivot chart, or only a connection. So I'm just going to click table, and we're going to output that to our existing worksheet. Then we've got a nice output of the 3 rows from each of the 3 files containing all 4 months of data in one nice output. The beauty of this now is it's fully dynamic. So if we were to copy sales division C, I'm just going to call that division D. So now we've got 4 files within that folder. I'm going to right click on my table and we're going to click refresh. That's going to refresh the query, and you can see we instantly get the output of that additional workbook that's been added into that folder. So what happens if the folder you're pointing at also has folders within it? I'm just going to put another folder within this clean folder, and I'm going to copy this division D workbook, and I'm going to place it inside, and I'm going to call it division E. Now we're going to right click on the query and we're going to click refresh, and we should only still get division A through to D because those are the only 4 workbooks in that particular folder that we've pointed to. So you'll notice here division E has dropped onto the workbook even though we pointed at the clean folder which just contains those 4 workbooks. So let's go back into the query and understand why that's happening. So I'm using the keyboard shortcut Alt and F12. Now in the query editor, if we go to the source step, you'll notice we're using Folder.Files. Now Folder.Files goes into the folder that you've pointed it to, and it also looks at any subfolders within that main folder. The way around this, if you just literally want the folders of the folder that you pointed to, so i.e. in this case we just want the 4 workbooks within clean and we don't want it to go off and look into any other folders like this test folder, what we would do is change this M function to be not Folder.Files but Folder.Contents. So notice we've still got the test folder showing, not necessarily the workbooks within that folder. So we're just going to utilize the fact that we know the workbooks we're going to receive in this particular scenario will always be Excel files, and therefore we can filter on the extension of .xlsx, and that will remove this folder that was in the last row of the source. So now when we go back down to change type, you can see we've got no errors and we've only got outputting 4 workbooks from within our folder here. So we can click close and load to. That will close and load and re-update our query within this table, and we'll see sales division E has now dropped off because we've switched that M function to ignore the contents of all the subfolders within the parent folder that we've pointed to. Okay, that's it. Now you know how to combine files using from folder in Power Query, and you also know the difference between Folder.Files and Folder.Contents, which keeps your data under control and avoids you pulling in unnecessary subfolders. In the next video, we're going to push this concept further, and we're going to look at how we deal with where our queries contain different worksheet names. So we'll look at how to make the queries dynamic so they never break. So make sure you join us for part 2. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again next week.